Jean Carroll made news headlines when she won her court case against Donald Trump. The jury awarded her $83 million. I'm going to break down the case for you in this video, including all the facts the mainstream media is not telling you. Jean Carroll sued Donald Trump. She wrote a book in 2019 where she claimed that Donald Trump raped her 25 years ago in a Bergdorf Goodman department store dressing room. Donald Trump denied the allegations and called her a liar on interviews and on social media. Jean Carroll sued for defamation, claiming that Donald Trump's denials ruined her reputation. A week ago, a jury issued a verdict for Jean Carroll with total damages of $83 million. The most important thing to understand about this case is that the jury found Donald Trump did not rape Jean Carroll. This is what makes this case so bizarre. This is not my opinion. This is what the jury decided. Here's the jury form where they made their decision. You can see on the form, did Ms. Carroll prove by a preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Trump raped Ms. Carroll? The jury marked no. You need to understand a little about the legal system to understand the significance of this jury decision. In the US, there are criminal courts and civil courts. In the case of a crime like rape, typically you would have a criminal trial first, followed by a civil trial where the victim can ask for financial damages. In Donald Trump's case, there was no criminal trial. They went straight to a civil trial to ask for damages, even though Donald Trump was never convicted of a crime in a criminal trial. The difference between a criminal trial and a civil trial is that it's easier to find someone guilty in a civil trial because there's a much lower standard for evidence. In a criminal trial, the jury has to find the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. They have to be really sure he is guilty. In a civil trial, you only need a preponderance of the evidence. That means you just need to be more than 50% sure that they are guilty in order to rule against them. So by bringing a rape charge against Donald Trump in civil court instead of criminal court, it was going to be much easier to convict him. We saw this play out in the famous trial against O.J. Simpson in 1994, where he was accused of double murder. During the criminal trial, he was found not guilty because the jury had some doubt. Then 3 years later, in 1997, came the civil lawsuit from the victims' families. The jury in the civil suit only had to be more than 50% sure that he committed the murders. They ruled against O.J. Simpson with a judgment of $33.5 million. For comparison, O.J. Simpson's verdict for a double murder was $33.5 million. Donald Trump's verdict was $83 million. That's a little strange. Also, as a quick side note, O.J. Simpson has paid little of the $33.5 million from 1997. What makes Donald Trump's verdict so shocking is that even with a mostly Democrat jury and a Democrat judge, in a case where they only needed 50% confidence that Donald Trump committed the crime, they still determined that Donald Trump did not rape Jean Carroll. That is a pretty resounding statement that Trump is innocent. The jury is saying that Jean Carroll's book is a lie. So if Donald Trump did not rape her, how in the world did he lose the case? And why does he have to pay $83 million? This is where the case gets strange. The judge in this case is Louis Kaplan. I'm going to walk you through step by step what this judge did, because I think you're going to be shocked. The civil case was about defamation. To prove defamation, you need to prove the person lied. You cannot suffer from defamation from someone telling the truth about you. In this case, we have a man and a woman involved in a rape allegation. Trump says he did not rape her. Jean Carroll says he did rape her. The jury decided that Jean Carroll was lying. From a legal standpoint, Trump cannot be guilty of defamation because the jury decided he was telling the truth. Now, I don't want to present this out of context, so let's go back to the jury form and read all the questions. This is what the jury decided. Number 1, did Ms. Carroll prove that Mr. Trump raped Ms. Carroll? No. Number 2, did Mr. Trump sexually abuse Ms. Carroll? Yes. Here the jury decides that even though Donald Trump did not rape Jean Carroll, he was somehow involved in some lesser crime. It is unclear what that crime is, and it was not the crime that Jean Carroll was accusing Trump of committing. The jury has decided that Jean Carroll was lying, but then they determined that Trump was guilty of some other crime that no one was accusing him of. Next, was Ms. Carroll injured as a result of Mr. Trump's conduct? They said yes. And then, was Mr. Trump's conduct willfully or wantonly negligent, reckless, or done with a conscious disregard of the rights of Ms. Carroll, or was so reckless as to amount to such disregard? They said yes. This last question is basically asking if additional punitive damages should be awarded. Next question, was Mr. Trump's statement defamatory? Yes. Was Mr. Trump's statement false? Yes. Was Mr. Trump's statement made with actual malice? Yes. Was Ms. Carroll injured as a result of Mr. Trump's statement? Yes. In making the statement, did Mr. Trump act maliciously out of hatred, ill will, spite, or wanton, reckless, or willful disregard of the rights of another? Yes. There are a couple of problems with the jury's decision. First, if the rape never happened, Donald Trump's statement cannot be false. The jury answered 2 questions that contradict each other. They are saying that Trump told the truth and lied at the same time. That makes no legal sense. A statement cannot be both true and false at the same time. Second, this case is about rape. Jean Carroll wrote a book where she described in graphic detail what happened. If the jury is deciding that Jean Carroll was lying in her book and something else happened entirely, they cannot then decide that Trump's statement was false because they are agreeing with Trump that Jean Carroll's book was a lie. This jury decision makes no legal sense. The whole case should be thrown out because of this document. What should have happened was the judge should have instructed the jury that they cannot decide that Trump's statement was both a lie and the truth at the same time. Either he was guilty of rape or not. He cannot be both. Since the jury decided that Trump did not rape Jean Carroll, the case should be thrown out. But the judge in this case, Louis Kaplan, did something sneaky. The judge decided to start a second civil trial with different charges, but then used the jury decision from the first trial. This shows incredible bias, in my opinion. Just to clarify here, the first trial started in 2019 and was for defamation. The second trial started in 2022 and was for both battery and defamation. Normally, you cannot sue over an assault from 25 years ago. That's past the statute of limitations. However, just days before the second case was filed, a new law went into effect in New York called the Adult Survivors Act. The act originated out of the Me Too movement that allowed people to sue for sexual crimes that were older than the statute of limitations. The new trial started, charging Donald Trump with battery and claiming he was already guilty of it because the previous jury had marked on their form that they believed he committed sexual assault, a crime that he was not being accused of. In the new trial, Trump is not allowed to defend himself against this new charge because he is already considered guilty. How is that fair? You cannot just use the jury decision from a different trial in a new trial with different charges. Let me go through this again. In the first trial, Donald Trump was found innocent of rape, but guilty of sexual assault, which he wasn't even accused of. Then there was a second trial where the judge used the jury decision from the first trial and declared Trump guilty of battery before the trial even started. This is so wild and so unjust. I can't believe it's happening. To show you how extreme this was, here are the instructions the judge gave to the jury in the second trial. The following facts pertinent to this dispute already have been decided. First, Mr. Trump sexually abused Ms. Carroll by forcibly inserting his fingers into her vagina without her consent. Second, Ms. Carroll did not make up her claim of forcible sexual abuse by Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump's statements were false. Third, Mr. Trump knew when he made his statements that they were false. Fourth, Mr. Trump's statements were defamatory. For your purposes, you must accept these points as true, no matter what else you may have heard in this trial. What remains for you to decide are two very limited issues relating to the damages Mr. Trump owes Ms. Carroll for defaming her in his June 2019 statements. Can you believe this? First of all, I don't agree that the jury in the first trial decided on these statements. You saw the jury form they filled out. It wasn't these statements. I've never seen such flagrant abuse of the law by a judge. He's just making this up. Jean Carroll's statement was not that there was inserting of fingers. She claimed they did the full sexual act. The jury found that was a lie. All the facts that the judge is now alleging are true are not the same facts from the first trial or the facts that were on the jury form. This trial is about something else entirely that Donald Trump has not had a chance to defend himself against in court. I believe what the judge did here in this case was improper and a reason to throw the entire case out. You cannot use a jury decision from a different case to decide a separate case and then deny the defendant the opportunity to defend himself. I want to point something else out. Did you notice in the jury instructions that the judge never told the jury that the previous jury had determined that Donald Trump did not rape Jean Carroll? This is kind of a relevant piece of information. The fact that the judge left this out of the jury instructions is itself a reason why this case should be overturned and shows extreme bias by this judge. There is also another major problem with this case. This case is specifically about statements made in June 2019. Trump was still president in June 2019. Legally, you cannot sue the President of the United States for defamation. It's not legal. Donald Trump has the right to defend the job of the presidency from false smear attacks. You cannot sue him for doing his job as the president. This is another reason why this case is not legally valid. Not a single other statement by Trump is mentioned in the instructions. It only mentions the June 2019 statements, which are covered under presidential immunity because Donald Trump was doing his job as the president. Another issue is the verdict itself. When you receive an award in a civil trial, it has to be based on reality. The jury determined that Jean Carroll deserved $11 million to help Carroll rebuild her reputation, $7.3 million for pain and suffering, and $65 million as punitive damages, meant as an additional punishment for Trump, for a total verdict of $83.3 million. These values are so high that they are another reason to appeal this case. Jean Carroll was a columnist. A civil case is supposed to compensate someone for damages they incurred. She was given $11 million to rebuild her career. She was never going to make $11 million as a writer. What is she being compensated for? $7.3 million for pain and suffering? What doctor bills are going to add up to $7.3 million? That makes no sense. As far as punitive damages, $65 million as punishment seems pretty extreme when the jury decided that Donald Trump was telling the truth. Another issue is that the judge did not allow Donald Trump to present a lot of evidence at either trial. The more you look at Jean Carroll's story, the more it falls apart. It turns out that E. Jean Carroll has accused a lot of men of rape and sexual abuse, including a babysitter's boyfriend, a dentist, a camp counselor, an unnamed college date, an unnamed boss, CBS chief executive Les Moonves, and now Donald Trump. This woman has been sexually abused by 7 different men. Is that unusual? That seems highly unlikely to me. Then, E. Jean Carroll keeps changing the year the alleged rape occurred. She first started claiming it was in 1994. Then, she published this photo of the outfit she was wearing on the cover of New York Magazine. It turns out this outfit was not made until 1996. Now, please explain this to me. How is it possible for her to be raped in 1994 wearing an outfit that would not be created for another 2 years? Then E. Jean Carroll changed her story and started claiming the rape occurred sometime during 1995 or 1996. If a woman is raped, is it unusual for them not to remember the year that it happened? Then it turns out that the story of a rape in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room was exactly the same as a story in a Law & Order episode. E. Jean Carroll has described herself as a fan of the show.
Role play took place in the dressing room of Bergdorf's. While she was trying on lingerie, I would burst in.
Hold on. Man.
When E. Jean Carroll was confronted about the similarity between her story and Law & Order, she said, "It tickled me to death," and called it a great, huge coincidence, but a magnificent one. She also went on CNN with Anderson Cooper and said, "I think most people think of rape as being sexy."
You don't feel like a victim?
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished. Which, the word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt.
But I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're just going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
She also named her cat Vagina. Have any of you considered calling one of your pets Vagina? That's not something that would ever occur to me. That's just strange. She has also posted numerous sexually explicit tweets, including this one about Donald Trump, asking, "Would you have sex with Donald Trump for $17,000? This tweet was posted in 2012. Remember that she is claiming to have been raped in 1994 or 1995 or 1996. If that happened, why would she post this sexual tweet about Donald Trump in 2012? Then, of course, there are all the political relationships associated with this case. E. Jean Carroll was originally convinced to sue Donald Trump at a party in 2019 by George Conway, a member of the Lincoln Project, which is a political advocacy group that fights against Donald Trump. E. Jean Carroll's case was financed by Reid Hoffman, someone who spent time on Jeffrey Epstein's island, and who also hates Trump. Then, E. Jean Carroll was involved in the process to change New York state law to include the Adult Survivors Act, which then allowed her to sue for more damages in her second civil suit. Also interesting, the judge in the case, Louis Kaplan, oversaw the Jeffrey Epstein case between Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre. That case was settled for $500,000. Isn't that interesting? A case involving an underage girl who was sexually assaulted multiple times resulted in a settlement for only $500,000, where the Donald Trump verdict was $83 million. Something just seems off about this judge. All of this information should be discussed in this case. It's all relevant, but this judge would not allow it, which is another reason to throw out the case. That's not fair. A jury cannot decide a case without hearing all the facts. You need to think about how this case will affect all of your lives. This case set precedent. A woman accused a man of rape. There's no evidence that it occurred. She cannot even remember the year that it occurred. Even though the jury found that he did not do it, the man has to pay $83 million because he defended himself. This could happen to anyone. If you have a husband or a son, any woman watching this verdict will think that they can just make up a story about your husband or your son and walk away with $83 million. This is not right. I don't think that anyone wants to live in a society where this can happen. If someone accuses you of something, you should have the right to defend yourself. I hope this case receives the scrutiny that it deserves. I think this verdict is a huge injustice, and I hope, for everyone's sake, that the entire case gets thrown out on appeal. Now I want to hear from you. Now that you've heard all the facts, do you think that Jean Carroll should receive $83 million? Let me know in the comments down below. And make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. If you like these videos, consider signing up for a monthly membership on my website, wolvesandfinance.com. For $6 a month, you help me to keep putting out these videos. I'm Zach from Wolves and Finance. Thank you for watching.